Harimi, harimi, al tirai, harimi, al tirai. Imri le'arei Yehuda, hinei Elokeichem. Harimi, harimi, al tirai.
Let's get started. I want to thank the Kramer family for once again sponsoring our class. Very much appreciated to the Kramers. Much appreciation. All right, Parshas Bereishis. So this usually we have a week to prepare for the Parsha of the week. This week, Simchas Torah finished on Tuesday. So you have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. You have a shortened week.
Terry's already very intent on his studying. He doesn't want to do anything but study because he lanes every Shabbos.
You gotta focus to get it done.
Weeks are about to get longer but shorter.
Right. I heard a big rabbi say tongue in cheek. There's a reason for that because the rabbis didn't want people spending too much time thinking about Parshas Bereishis. There are so many esoteric concepts in the creation of the world. If people start thinking about it too much, they're going to get into a little trouble. So I think that was more said tongue in cheek, but it is definitely true that this week's Parsha has a ton of stuff in it, right? Talking about the creation of the world. We have Shabbos, we have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, the sin, what it all means, and we have the issue with Cain and Abel, that little circumstance that happened, an unfortunate, the first Law and Order episode. So, exactly. Welcome, Steve Ubino. Please take some chalant. Okay.
You need something to drink. I put a whole bunch of seltzer.
Oh, you have?
For the,
Okay. See,
for the,
someone asked for a drink. I didn't know if we were allowed to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I apologize if that's the case.
No. I bought it for the shul. So.
Oh, thank you.
Guess we're in the shul.
I should have asked
It's only
first.
for the Simchas Torah luncheon. So there's so much left over.
Love seltzer.
Please.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. So I want to start with some questions about Shabbos, and then I would like to answer those questions with more questions, and then hopefully give an answer to all the questions at the end, as the usual Jewish way goes. First, let's read about Shabbos. If you want to follow along on page 10. Shabbos is spoken about many, many times in the Torah because it's very important. The Rambam says if something's spoken about a lot in the Torah, it means it's important, and that actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, page 10, first line. This is after Hashem created the world in 6 days. It says, "Vayichulu hashemayim v'aretz v'chol tzava'am." All of the heaven and the earth and all of their array. That's a good word. I'm not sure how that helps me more than the Hebrew, but
I like that.
he was finished.
Legion.
Yeah, the legions. Okay. Vayichal Elokim b'yom hashvi malachto asher asa. He finished all of the work that he did. Vayishpos b'yom hashvi, and he rested on the seventh day. Mikol malachto asher asa, from all the work which he did. Vayivarech Elokim es yom hashvi. Hashem blessed the seventh day. Vayikadosh, so he sanctified it. Kivo shavas mikol malachto, because on that day he rested from all of his work. Asher bar Elokim lasos, which he created to make. And that's obviously, we know this is in the davening Friday night and part of Kiddush. Now let's look at another place where it talks about Shabbos, which is Shmos 31:16 on page 492.
492?
492.
Excellent.
Skipping around.
Let's go 100 pages
Then we're
later.
going to ask, we're going to ask a question on this. 492. The first line in the middle of the line. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos, and the Jewish people will watch the Shabbos. La'asos es ha-Shabbos, to do the Shabbos. L'dorosam b'ris olam, for generations it'll be an eternal covenant. So what does it mean to do the Shabbos? La'asos es ha-Shabbos. It's a very interesting word. It kind of should have said to rest, like the beginning, to guard the Shabbos, like it said at the beginning of the verse. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos. Was lishmor es Shabbos instead of to guard the Shabbos? What's la'asos es Shabbos? To do the Shabbos. That's one question. What does it mean? What does it mean to do the Shabbos? Interesting word. What?
To observe it.
But it didn't say that. It said lishmor.
But do
To
sounds
do
like
the
an
Shabbos.
active term, and
Exactly.
you're supposed to rest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Sounds like an active term.
Imitate Hashem, because Hashem rested on the seventh day.
Right. But what does it mean to do? Hashem rested, so why doesn't it say rest? Shabbos or something like that.
Yeah,
Why did he rest
that's
on?
two words.
To do
Why did
as
he rest?
Hashem would do.
What did God
He's
rest?
God, he doesn't need to rest.
That's a good point. It obviously doesn't mean physical rest. Yeah. No, it doesn't mean physical rest.
Ceasing from creation.
Right, it's true. It ceases from creation, and I don't want to give the spoiler alert but I'm not going to give the spoiler for the end of the shir. We're going to maybe talk a little bit about what Hashem did with Shabbos, in addition to just the superficial reading that people think, chas v'shalom, that God was very tired and needed to rest. We're going to talk about at the end what Hashem did to Shabbos. So, show of hands here. Has anyone ever said Lecha Dodi? Lecha Dodi?
Lecha
Yeah.
Dodi,
Me too.
Lecha.
So, I never realized this before. I've been saying this for many years. Lecha Dodi doesn't make any sense. Seemingly doesn't make any sense. I'll read it to you. Did you notice that it's really not about Shabbos so much? It really has nothing to do about Shabbos. The beginning does. It says Lecha Dodi Lekras Kala Pnei Shabbos Nekabel. We will greet the face of Shabbos. Okay. Shamor v'Zachar b'di Borechad. That's the next line. We'll watch and remember with to watch and to remember. To guard, to watch, to remember. To remember and to guard with one statement is what Hashem said. Okay, that's about Shabbos. That's the second line. The third stanza, Likra Shabbos lechuvanelcha, will greet Shabbos. Very good. Now, the fourth stanza, Mikdash Melech Ir Melucha, the temple of the king in the royal city. Okay, what does that have to do about Shabbos? Temple of the king in the royal city? I don't know. Then we have Nisnar Ari Me'afar Kumi, Livshi Bigdi Sefar Teichami, Al Yad Ben Yishai, through Ben Yishai. Who's Ben Yishai? The son of Yishai. Beis Salachmi from Bethlehem. That is King David. We're talking about King David all of a sudden. So here we have Beis Hamikdash, we have King David, and then we have later on V'nifnasa Ir Al Tila, you'll build a city. What's that about? Yaminus Montifrozi, Al Yad Ish Ben Parsi, through the son of Peretz, the descendant of Peretz. That's King David. So again, we're talking about King David. So all of a sudden, the first three lines. What?
Happy and mirthful or something like that?
Mirthful?
Yeah.
Your English is clearly a level above mine.
Oh, okay. because that's what it says in the Mamatorling's sitter.
Mirthful? Yeah.
The Siddur, yeah.
Doesn't help me. So says something about the.
I'm not very educated with that word either.
Says something about the public education system in Manalapan. Anyway, so we have here the first.
Glad and mirthful.
We have here the first three verses are about Shabbos, and then it starts talking about the Beis Hamikdash, King David, who's the progenitor of Mashiach, and Jerusalem. So what is Lecha Dodi doing? It's supposed to be about a Shabbos prayer. It's supposed to be a Shabbos prayer. What are we doing? Now, a third question. If God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, and that's for all of humanity, why don't non-Jews have Shabbos also? Right? They took it from us later, but if you look in the classic Jewish sources, non-Jewish people don't have a mitzvah to keep Shabbos. They just have 7 commandments, and keeping Shabbos is not one of them. But why not? They're creations. They should keep Shabbos.
Why 7 commandments?
But isn't there stories of
Noah.
Oh, the Noahide was?
Yeah, but there is stories about Shabbos and non-Jews.
In what sense that they kept it?
Some did, some did because they want to take on.
Oh, right. If you're so do you know that they actually tell people when they're converting, and they have to practice keeping Shabbos. They actually tell them to violate one law of Shabbos, so they don't keep the whole thing. So.
Any specific law or just one random?
They tell them turn on a light or something, just so you're not actually keeping the entire Shabbos, because it's actually forbidden for a non-Jewish person to keep Shabbos the way that we keep Shabbos. There's actually a joke about that. What?
It seems like an anti-Semitic ploy.
Oh yeah, once you're converted, then you're totally Jewish, and you have to keep Shabbos. But when they're practicing, they violate one law of Shabbos. There's a joke that they say. There was these 2 guys learning in yeshiva on Shabbos, and one says to his friend, he says, "No, I have to tell you something. I'm not really Jewish." He said, "What do you mean? We've been learning for so many years. How can you not be Jewish?" He's like, "No, I just got into Torah learning. It was very interesting, so I just got into it." He's like, "Well, you can't keep. How have you been keeping Shabbos? You're not Jewish. You're not allowed to keep Shabbos. You know the Torah says you can't keep Shabbos." He's like, "Oh, I want you to know, every Shabbos I make sure to walk around with a key. So I'm making sure to violate Shabbos." He's like, "You fool, there's an Erev here." So he says back, "You hold from that Erev?" That's the joke. What? Yeshiva's joke. Right. It's a joke with a point, so it's not so funny, but it's a joke with a point. Okay, so we have 3 questions. 1, what does it mean to do the Shabbos? Number 2, why is Lecha Dodi talking so much about the temple, not talking about Shabbos? And 3, why do only Jewish people keep Shabbos? So these questions I've combined were from a combination of my Rosh Yeshiva, Shlita, and the Beis Halevi. The Beis Halevi was the Grand Rabbi of Brisk about 200 years ago. Brisk is one of the famous cities of Europe that produced a great rabbinic dynasty that still has, this is the Soloveitchik family. If you ever heard of Rabbi Soloveitchik, they come from the Brisk dynasty. So the Beis Halevi was the founder of that dynasty. So he asked some of these questions, and my Rosh Yeshiva also asked. So he cites a medrash. We're going to answer this question with a question. The medrash says as follows. Shabbos says to Hashem, there's 7 days in the week. So he says, every day of the week has a partner. You have 6 days. They each have a partner. He says, I don't have a partner. So Hashem says to him, your partner will be the Jewish people. Okay. That's a nice medrash. Yeah, but what does it mean? It's very nice. Good feeling. What does that mean, though? There's clearly a deeper meaning here. Clearly something going on. So now we're going to get a little Kabbalistic, and we're just going to try to do it on the surface level. So don't take anything I'm saying too literally. But before Hashem created the world, it was just Hashem. Just Hashem, nothing else. When Hashem created the world, he, so to say, had to be mitzamtim himself, had to constrict himself to make room for the world. Now, there's a big discussion about how that works from the fact that still Hashem is Malik Al-Am, and Hashem still fills the world entirely, but and also in a sense, it seems like an apparent contradiction that he constricted himself to create room for the world. So we're going to go with that. We're not going to get too much into that, but this is like a big thing in Kabbalah. It's talked about volumes and volumes and volumes. But the point is that on some level, and the way we relate to Hashem, he constricted himself to allow room for the world. Now, that means it could have been he made the world that was totally detached from him. Right? He's holy, he's pure goodness and holiness, and then he makes a physical world, which has evil, has bad things. It could have been he left it like that, but he wanted to allow in this physical world, he wanted to make in this physical world that there be an infusion of holiness. He wanted to make room for the possibility that humans could come in contact with him and have a relationship with him, and to perceive and to connect with him. And this is what gives life to the world. So how did he do this? He did it with Shabbos. Shabbos was the vehicle that Hashem made, that even though the world is detached in a certain sense from Hashem, this is how Hashem infuses the world with spirituality. It's Makor HaBracha in Lecha Dodi. It's the source of blessing. So that explains why in Lecha Dodi, what are we talking about? What was the source of holiness in the world? The Beis HaMikdash, the temple. That's where Hashem's presence dwelt. That's why Lecha Dodi is talking about the temple, talking about King David, who's going to give birth to Mashiach, when we're going to have the temple back, because it's talking about the infusion of spirituality. The idea of Shabbos is it's Makor HaBracha, it's the source of blessing. That's how spirituality and godliness comes into the world. Now, he writes that, the Beis HaLevi continues and says that every day of creation, the partnerships between the days were created male and female. I don't know which day was male and which day was female, but he said it was partnership. And he says those pairs, those 6 days, had that type of partnership. So how? So everything in the world could reproduce. The idea of having things in the world, Hashem created beings that they should be able to reproduce and go on by themselves. Now, Shabbos and the Jewish people are the same couple in the same idea, in the same sense. They're a couple with a male-female relationship to reproduce. What should they reproduce? They should reproduce holiness. Now, with this we answer our question of why Shabbos is only given to the Jewish people. Because the Jewish people are the chosen people that through them holiness comes into the world. Other people in the world have a chance to get close to Hashem, but the holiness comes through the Jewish people. They're the chosen people that when all of the nations of the world were given a chance to come and say, we want to live for Hashem, we don't want to live for our own selfish purposes. There was one man who said he wants to live for Hashem and he believes that there's one God. That was Abraham. So at that point in time, it became set that only the Jewish people are going to be that vehicle for holiness. Hashem originally wanted that all peoples, it would be the entire world, but that they didn't live up to the task. So you still have converts, people can still join the Jewish people, things like that. So it's through the Shabbos and the Jewish people that holiness comes into the world. And that's why it says, Lasus is a Shabbos, to do the Shabbos. What are we doing? What are we making? We're making holiness. We're making holiness into the world. And he says, as the Jewish people do more mitzvos and keep the Shabbos, then more and more godliness comes into the world. That's what the Beis HaLevi says. So that answers why it was only the Jewish people have Shabbos. Again, we're saying the Yesod, the principle that we're saying, is that Hashem could have made the world totally detached from him, that there is no way to get close to him, but no, he made a vehicle through which we can get close to him, have a relationship with him, understand his actions to a certain extent, and that is through Shabbos. So Shabbos has, and by extension it means the Yom Tovim also, the holidays. And we just had all these holidays, so there's different sources that show the holidays are really a continuation of the holiness of Shabbos. So there's a certain halacha, certain law. It says if you're lost in the woods for weeks and you don't know when Shabbos is, it says you count 7 days, and the 7th day you keep Shabbos. You just guess. So there's a certain Rebbe who asked, he said he understands every halacha in the code of Jewish law except for that halacha. He says, how could you not know when it's Shabbos? You feel it. There's something different on Shabbos. There's something in the air. I have a Rebbe. It was a powerful experience hearing him talk about Shabbos. He's just saying everything looks different. Even a brick looks different. Everything you look at is different. There's a whole different, when you start keeping some of the laws of Shabbos and a little bit, then you have this spiritual sensitivity is heightened, and you can detect these things, and you feel there's something special about this day. You guys ever hear? I've mentioned this story before. I think I don't remember how long ago. But you ever hear of Sam Zeitlin, a cyclist? I'll tell it quickly. I like this story. It has to do with Shabbos. He was a non-religious cyclist. He wanted to make it to the Olympics. He was in the United States, and he had some problems. He really was good enough to make the Olympic trials, but he was getting attacked by some of the other cyclists. He claims there's a lot of anti-Semitism on the team, and they were attacking him for being Jewish back then. It wasn't 10 years ago. So he figured the only way that he's going to have a chance to make the Olympic team is if he goes to Israel. So he moved to Israel with the sole purpose of making the Israeli Olympic team in cycling. So he practiced. He was constantly cycling around Israel, Jerusalem, Bnei Brak, and it happened to be when he was there, he got involved with Eish Torah. You ever heard of Eish Torah? It's a yeshiva in Israel that's geared towards people with no backgrounds in Judaism. So he went in Eish Torah and he got close, I think, to Rabbi Weinberg, who was a yeshiva, and he started learning Torah and he got very into it. He started keeping Shabbos. And there was a certain niggin, I forgot what it was, but there was a certain tune that he would sing about Shabbos as he was cycling. So sang, and he's ready. He's finally ready, and now he became a religious person. He started keeping Shabbos. And finally it comes for the Olympic trials. Guess
It was on Shabbos.
It was on Shabbos. The Israeli Olympic team held the Olympic trials on Shabbos.
And why would an Israeli Olympic team do that?
They're not religious. The Israeli government is very not religious, and unfortunately has a history of being anti-religious. And he begged them and begged them and begged them to change the trials. They wouldn't do it. So he's faced with a choice. What's he going to do? Is he going to keep Shabbos, or is he going to, he's got to give up his live stream to do it. So you know what he did? He gave it up. He didn't.
He had a
Good for him.
New life dream.
New life dream. Right?
Good for him.
Now, can I tell you what happened? There's more to the story. You know what year that was? It's 1972. You know where the Olympics were and what happened?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was in Munich. It saved his life.
Munich, and there was a attack.
That's when the
Watching out for him.
That's when the Palestinian terrorists came, and had he been there, he probably would have been murdered.
Yeah.
So Shabbos happened to save his life.
Or seriously injured.
Yeah, I think they all died, or all the athletes died?
I don't know. I was born in '77.
Yeah, it's where Muir Gold went after everybody after that because he killed our team.
Golden Mayor.
Yeah.
I remember being a little kid when that happened.
And then the Germans just wanted to keep it going. The Olympics, they just wanted it to.
Yeah. Brush it under the carpet.
Yeah, that was the most important thing to keep the Olympics. Oh, good old Germans.
They will never change.
Not.
Yep.
Even as much as they profess to.
Yeah, of course not.
They will never change.
It's actually interesting.
French are just about as bad.
My friend's grandparents said that before the
Nazis.
war, the Germans were the nicest to the Jews. He said the worst. How was it? They said the Polish were bad. Then after that was
Belgium.
Lithuania.
Lithuania, and then the worst were the Ukrainians. And he said the worst were the Ukrainians. But the Germans were like the best. No one would have suspected it. But yeah, when I was 12 years old, I met Rav Nassim Wachvogel, who was the mashgiach of the yeshiva in Lakewood. Very holy man. He was in his probably late 90s when I met him. And he told me, he died actually a few months later, and he said, all your blessings will come from Shabbos. I think this is what he's saying, that Shabbos is the vehicle. It's not just a day. People think, talk about Shabbos is so nice, I get to relax and we'll spend time with my family and read. It's true, it's very nice, but there's a deeper meaning to it. There's something more there. Shabbos is the whole purpose of creation. The whole purpose of creation is that God will reveal himself to all of humanity, and that that all of humanity will have a relationship with him. So how did it start? How did the infusion of spirituality start? With Shabbos. And who keeps the Shabbos to bring that holiness into the world? That's the Jewish people. And that's why we talk so much about building the temple and the Lecha Dodi. That's why the Jewish people specifically keep Shabbos, and that's why Lassos is Shabbos, to do the Shabbos. So anything we can do, right? It's not all or nothing. It can be daunting. When you, I didn't grow up keeping Shabbos, so if someone would tell me,
Neither have I.
yeah, if someone would tell me just like start keeping all of Shabbos, there's 39 things you can't do, and all these rabbinic laws, and you have to do this, and but you could do one thing. You light the candles and have a meal at night. That's not nothing. That's something you do little by little, and then you grow, climbing up the ladder, small steps. Usually you take big steps; they don't last either. But okay, that's what I wanted to share. And thanks again to the Kramer family for sponsoring.
Thank you, Rabbi.
That rabbi from Lakewood.
Yeah.
Did you live in Lakewood?
No, I lived in Malvern. Grew up right here.
Not when I was little. My dentist